Exclusive access revealing the big stories. A new series of Inside Crime starts this Thursday on ITV1.
Good evening, I'm Jonathan Wills. These are the main stories in London tonight. Thousands of Londoners have escaped the capital for the four-day Easter weekend. The British Airports Authority have reported record numbers passing through Heathrow, Gatwick and Stansted. But it's been a very different story on the railways with all the latest travel news. Over now to Sarah Smith, who's at Clapham Junction. Sarah, good evening.
Hi. Well, Network Rail are taking advantage of 4 days without commuters to carry out some major engineering works, which is affecting many routes in and out of London. Here at Clapham Junction, a bridge replacement scheme is causing problems for trains going in and out of Waterloo. Some lines are closed. There are restricted services, extended journey times, and in some cases replacement buses. But plenty of people are finding other ways to make their journeys. Just a few of the 18 million people expected to take to the roads this Easter weekend. The M25 fulfilling its reputation as the country's busiest motorway. And while bank holiday traffic jams are nothing new, many have taken the car to avoid problems on the railways. A huge programme of engineering works bringing delays and cancellations to many routes out of the capital. St Pancras, Paddington, Euston, King's Cross, Waterloo, all affected.
Complete blockades, which are getting more and more frequent, does bring us certain, concerns, because it's not going to attract people to use the lines. I mean, at weekends and holidays like this, for many people it's the only time they use the railway, and they're obviously not going to get a terribly good impression.
Meanwhile, more of us than ever are taking to the skies this year. A record number leaving from London's airports. 1.5 million passengers expected through Heathrow, Gatwick and Stansted.
From Heathrow, the top destinations are New York, Amsterdam, Paris and Dublin, the ones you'd expect. But also Glasgow, Edinburgh and Manchester are very popular. They're in our top 10 because people want to go home and see their friends and the family, and flying is a quick and affordable way of doing it.
But while many Londoners, as is tradition, leave the city to the tourists for the bank holiday, those of us not heading off not only avoid the busy roads, packed airports and delayed trains. Forecasters say in the south we should also get the best of the sun. And it certainly has been a good start to the weekend. Travel-wise, the advice then, if you're using the rail, ring National Rail Inquiries first to find out how your journey should be. The latest checks suggest motorways-wise, the traffic is moving very smoothly, and of course, inside the M25, the roads are pretty clear, so it's quite a good weekend to be here in London.
Great, many thanks indeed for that, Sarah Smith at Clapham Junction. Now, prayers for peace were said today after a traditional Good Friday procession through Westminster. Archbishop of Westminster, Cardinal Cormac Murphy O'Connor, was joined on the 90-minute procession to Westminster Abbey by homeless people who were helped by The Passage, a nearby charity. The cross was carried at the head of the silent march by one of the homeless. And Londoners can get their last look at Concorde before it begins its final journey to its new home at the Museum of Flight in Scotland. The supersonic jet will be on public display until Sunday in Isleworth. On Monday, it will travel down the Thames and up the east coast of Britain on a special barge. Hundreds of anti-nuclear campaigners gathered in Trafalgar Square today for a rally before a four-day march down to the British atomic weapons establishment at Aldermaston in Berkshire. Organised by CND, it's the first anti-nuclear march for 15 years. Among the politicians and celebrities was Pat Arrowsmith, who organised the first ever Aldermaston march 46 years ago. Liz Wickham reports.
This little ceramic badge and this makeshift banner have seen 46 years of active service for CND. So has their owner, Pat Arrowsmith, who, when she set out on the first Aldermaston March in 1958, had hoped her campaigning days against nuclear weapons would end long before now. But according to CND, a whole new generation of protesters need to march against a new generation of weapons currently being developed at Aldermaston.
There's an infamous weapon proposed called a bunker buster, which will be launched in a first strike against an alleged enemy to destroy their stores of weapons of mass destruction underground and so on.
Today in Trafalgar Square, hundreds rallied for a new four-day march to Aldermaston, many veterans of previous campaigns, including Tony Benn.
My dear friends, 59 years ago at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the most terrifying weapons ever devised were used and tens of thousands of people were killed.
More recent CND members include Blur's Damon Albarn.
Well, there's just a massive hypocrisy in war period, because you terrorise people and traumatise them by dropping bombs. How can you expect them not to, at some point, just react to it?
As you can see, CND is still largely a movement of white middle-class people. What they're hoping as they go through London today is to pick up marchers of all ages, all races and all religious persuasions.
Actress Susanna York paid tribute to Mordecai Vanunu, the Israeli dissident who was imprisoned for 18 years for revealing secrets about Israel's nuclear weapons program. The march left Trafalgar Square at 1:15.
So for the first time in 15 years, CND is on the march again. From here to Southall, to Reading, and finally, in 4 days' time, to Aldermaston.
Liz Wickham, London Tonight in Piccadilly.
Now then, a trip to the cinema is a popular choice over the bank holiday weekend. We're joined in the studio by our regular movie expert, James King, to help with that all-important choice. James, good evening. Let's start off with just how big a weekend is it for the cinemas?
Well, I think it depends on the weather, actually. If it's sunny, then people want to be outside, but not so great weather. People go to the cinema, and it's not a particularly good bank holiday weekend for movies on the telly either. So I think the cinema could be the popular choice.
Well, let's talk about two of the movies then. Shaun of the Dead, tell us about that one.
Yeah, this is a British film, a romantic comedy with zombies. That's how it's advertised. Starring Simon Pegg. He's playing this character of Shaun. He's down on his luck. He hates his job. He's being dumped by his girlfriend. To add to his woes, he also discovers that England has been taken over by zombies. Let's take a look at a clip.
They still out there? Yeah. What do you think we should do? Have a sit down?
Quality. Now, we've seen Simon Pegg. Where have we seen him before, apart from on the big screen?
Yeah, on TV. A couple of TV shows. Spaced was his big hit. He did a TV show called Hippies as well, but Spaced is a real cult TV show. So I think fans of that TV show are going to love this movie, because it's very similar in style. If you saw that TV show, then it was quite surreal and quite deadpan. And Shaun of the Dead, the movie, also has that style about it. Very funny stuff. And
British comedy back to its best after a few turkeys, could be described as.
Yeah, I mean, it's always touch and go with British comedy, but actually it's probably the same with American comedy. I just think we hold it under a magnifying glass a bit more if it's homegrown. But this one is very stylish and it's very funny. The horror element, not maybe as good as the funny element, but watch it for the jokes and you will laugh.
And British comedy in Crouch End. Unusual.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real suburban horror movie. This is like the anti-Hollywood horror movie. It's just people in the suburbs trying to cope with zombies and not doing it very well.
Right, that's British comedy. Len, let's talk about some American comedy. 51st Dates.
Yes, this is starring Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. Adam Sandler meets the girl of his dreams, completely falls head over heels in love with her, played by Drew Barrymore, only to discover that she has short-term memory loss. Right. So every day, when she wakes up, she can't remember who the hell he is. Right. We've got a clip.
Let's see, I go to this restaurant every morning, and I see you there reading, and I love you very much. Probably more than anybody could love another person.
Wow. And how do I feel about you?
You've been dying to make out with me for quite some time now.
Now, to me, that's Groundhog Day meets schmaltz in a big, big amount.
Well, there is quite a lot of schmaltz in it. You have to be prepared for that. I'm a big fan of romantic comedies, and, you know, to me, it does fulfill the two criteria. Is it romantic? Yes. Very romantic film, very sweet film. Is it funny? Well, those two characters aren't the funniest ones. There's a very good supporting cast of real weird and wacky characters, and they're the ones who get the laughs. And I think if you just want something that's frothy and fluffy and is not going to change the world, but fulfills the criteria of being a romantic comedy, then 51st Dates does the job.
We've seen Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore together in film before, in The Wedding Singer, of course. Does it work that they appear again when people will be looking, presumably, at the previous film and thought this is the next thing? Yeah, and it's not, clearly.
Yeah, well, I think it does, because even though they haven't been out together in real life, I think they have great chemistry together. And actually, when they do interviews together as well, they're really, really good couple. And so I believe them when they're on the screen. I believe that they could actually fall in love with each other.
So the clip there didn't really work for it?
The clip's not the best bit, okay?
Yeah.
There's some funny stuff in it, there's some very sweet stuff in it. If you want just a throwaway romantic comedy that does the job, yeah, I could recommend 50 First Dates. I liked it.
Anything more, slightly more cerebral for those people who need to have a little bit of that?
Well, there is a documentary out called Capturing the Friedmans, which was an Oscar-nominated documentary. And if you can get the chance to see that, I mean, that's a 5-star movie. Not going to be on everywhere, but definitely worth seeing.
Heavy?
Heavy-ish, yeah. I mean, it's about a real-life case in the 80s about a family, two members of a family who are accused of sexual abuse of children. So, I mean, it is heavy stuff, but very intriguing movie.
If you had to go and watch one film this weekend?
You know, I'm a sucker for rom-coms, so I'm going to go with 50 First Dates. Don't shoot me, please, but 50 First Dates.
You're still alive. Thanks, James. James King there. Well, if none of that appealed to you, there's plenty more going on over the Easter holiday. Rachel Millichip takes a look at some of the other highlights.
If browsing for antiques is your thing, check out the Adams Antiques Fair at the Royal Horticultural Halls in Westminster on Easter Sunday. It's thought to be the largest monthly event of its type in London. Opening at 9:30 a.m, admission is £3. The John Manning Fun Fair at Alexandra Palace Park offers thrills and spills for the brave. There's no admission fee and the fair will be up and running until next Sunday, ending at 8 p.m. every evening. For traditionalists, the London Harness Horse Parade will be attracting visitors to Battersea Park on Easter Monday. This impressive event dates back to Victorian times. Those turning up for midday will see prize giving. There's no charge for spectators, but donations are welcomed. And finally, if your youngsters are getting restless, a trip to the cinema could be the answer. The hot ticket for juniors this weekend is The Cat in the Hat, starring Mike Myers.
Personally, I'm off to the horses. Now, there's plenty of top football action in the capital as well this weekend. Arsenal, they steadied their nerves with a 4-2 win in the Premiership earlier today. Spurs, they're in action later, while Chelsea will be trying to keep the pressure on at the top. Chris Paxton looks ahead.
Tottenham get their Easter weekend underway tonight at Goodison Park. 3 defeats in a row have seriously damaged their chances of qualifying for Europe, and Spurs are now looking over their shoulders at the relegation zone, 9 points below. However, Everton are without Wayne Rooney and Duncan Ferguson, who are both suspended. Chelsea may be in the Champions League semi-finals, but Claudio Ranieri is still unsure whether he'll be in charge next season. At least the team are backing him. Reports say the players are appalled at the way the manager's job has been touted around. If they avoid defeat against Middlesbrough tomorrow, it'll be their 10th consecutive game unbeaten. Arsenal's tough sequence of games continues on Sunday. The good news is, though, the Gunners haven't lost at St James's Park for almost 4 years. Charlton still have hopes of making Europe and should get 3 points against Portsmouth tomorrow. Manager Alan Kirbishley has a defensive injury crisis, though. He's unlikely to have that problem next season. Charlton's transfer dealings this season mean that Kirbishley will have a kitty approaching £16 million to spend on new players this summer. And a win for Fulham will do no favours for their former manager Mickey Adams, now in charge of strugglers Leicester. But the Cottagers' current boss, Chris Coleman, has said he just wants to go to the Walkers Stadium and turn them over. Obviously no room for sentiment. Chris Paxton, London Tonight.
Right then, what's the weather got in store for us for the rest of this Easter weekend? Here's Chrissy Reedy to tell us.
What's the weather like in Amsterdam?
Actually, it's better than I expected.
Well, of course it is. Expect the best and you'll be surprised how good things can be. Be positive, matey.
Hello there. So after a lovely afternoon, certainly plenty of brightness around. We will pay for that for a while tonight. Clear spells for a time, although very soon cloud will start streaming in from the north. With that too, some light and patchy rain. But where the skies stay clearer for the longest, temperatures will get down to around 4 Celsius. So fairly damp and cloudy start first thing tomorrow morning. But that rain should eventually dry out. Cloudy through the afternoon. If you're lucky, you could see some glimmers of sunshine. We will hold on to the light winds, though, highs of 11 Celsius. So what's in store then over the weekend? Well, essentially it should stay dry. Hopefully we will see some good sunshine too, and look at those temperatures, thankfully up into double figures. Bye-bye for now.
Sponsored by BMI. Welcome to low-cost flights without the low expectations.
Well, that's it for now. I'll be back tomorrow with a full roundup on all the day's news and sport. While looking ahead, Millwall's FA Cup hero Tim Cahill will be the guest on Soccer Sunday at the usual time of 12:30 with Clive Allen and myself. Join us for that if you can. Goodbye.
Well, it had to happen. Robert and Katie's luck is about to run out in Emmerdale. That's in 15 minutes, followed by Coronation Street at 7:30. First on ITV1, Katie Derham has the news.
Leave or face revolution, an ultimatum to America as 6 more foreigners are abducted in Iraq. On the anniversary of the toppling of Saddam's statue, 4 Italians and 2 Americans are seized amid a frenzy of new violence. Also on the programme, travel trauma, 18 million on the move, but did Britons cope with the Easter getaway? And double delight, the twin girls safely delivered thanks to the long arm of the law. Good evening. A year to the day that Saddam Hussein's statue was famously toppled, Iraq was again engulfed in an orgy of violence. Today there were bombings, shootings, maimings and dozens of separate attacks on coalition forces. There were also more abductions. This time 4 Italians and 2 Americans were seized. There was confirmation too that a British man was shot dead on Thursday. And to top it all, a threat: leave or face revolution. That from the radical cleric whose standoff with the Americans has plunged Iraq back into war. From Baghdad, Julian Mannion reports.
Near the outskirts of Baghdad, American vehicles burn. On the anniversary of the fall of the Iraqi capital, it's now the insurgents who are on the offensive. In separate attacks on American convoys, 9 people, said by witnesses to be coalition soldiers, were killed. So far, there's no statement from the Americans. A TV team trying to reach the area was fired on by American troops. The cameraman was injured when their car crashed. To the west of Baghdad, fighting has broken out again in the town of Fallujah. That's despite a coalition announcement that the Marine offensive would pause to allow humanitarian efforts and talks with the insurgents to take place.
It's important to understand that the coalition remains firm, that should these discussions break down, the coalition military forces are prepared to go back on the offensive operations.
For those who planned and desired this war, the toppling of Saddam's giant statue in the center of Baghdad was a moment of triumph. But anyone who expected celebrations in the square today was disappointed. This square, which briefly symbolized the victory over Saddam Hussein, is now empty and under heavy American guard. The American Humvee Jeep with a loudspeaker on top is telling people in Arabic that the square is locked down and that anyone seen entering it in a car or carrying a weapon will be shot on sight. US troops climbed the plinth where Saddam's statue used to stand to remove fresh posters of the Shiite militant leader Muqtada al-Sadr. Later, a mortar round landed near the square, one of at least half a dozen fired into the city center today. At this anniversary of what was supposed to be liberation, many Iraqis are now turning against the coalition. For the first time in living memory, Sunni and Shia worshippers prayed together in one of Baghdad's largest mosques and denounced the US operation in Fallujah. The speaker demanded that the occupying forces leave Iraq. In one of Baghdad's Shiite slums, a massive demonstration chanted victory to Muqtada al-Sadr. And al-Sadr himself issued a statement calling George Bush an enemy and warning that if US forces do not leave Iraq, they will face a revolution. Meanwhile, the 3 Japanese hostages are still under threat of death from their captors, and 6 more foreigners, 4 Italians and 2 Americans, have been seized by militants. A year after victory, the coalition's woes are piling up. Julian Mannion, ITV News, Baghdad.
Julian, could anyone have imagined that 1 year on, Iraq would look like this?
No, it's turned out to be a most unfortunate anniversary and indeed something of a watershed moment, with increasing number of Iraqis simply deciding, in spite of their liberation from Saddam Hussein, that they want the occupation to end.
Have the Americans grasped the sheer scale of the uprising, do you think?
Well, it's difficult to say, but I must tell you, in my case, I experienced for the first time today, watching the military briefing of Brigadier General Mark Kimmitt, the same feelings of disbelief that I used to experience in Vietnam at the disconnect from reality. Specifically, Brigadier General Kimmitt claimed, for example, that the Shiite slum called Sadr City on the outskirts of Baghdad was, he said, under control. And at the same time, we were receiving pictures taken by a brave Iraqi cameraman showing this massive demonstration of people chanting for victory for al-Sadr. Now, if Brigadier General Kimmitt really believes that these people are under control, or indeed are going to cooperate with America's increasingly muddled plans for this country, he has quite simply lost the plot.
Julian Mannion in Baghdad, thank you very much indeed. Well, as Julian mentioned, there's growing concern about the fate of those kidnapped by Iraqi militants. In Japan, more than 4,000 people marched through the streets of Tokyo demanding the withdrawal of Japanese soldiers, something the country's government is refusing to consider. Let's move on to other news now. And the family of a murdered teenager say they're sick and scared after learning their son's killer is on the run following a prison blunder. 17-year-old James McCormick was at Hamilton Sheriff Court in Lanarkshire when he was mistakenly freed by security staff. It's now emerged a second man was also released in the mix-up. A murder inquiry has been launched in the West Midlands after a man was found stabbed to death in his burning house. 76-year-old Benjamin Jones was found by firefighters in Tipton. Now, if you've been travelling this Easter already, you'll know all about disruption. Roads, rail and air have all been groaning under the strain of us getting away on our holidays. So, how has the system been coping? Well, Lauren Taylor is at London's Paddington Station tonight. Lauren.
Yes, I'm afraid it's rail hell this weekend with a whole load of engineering work and station closures. Here at Paddington, 2 mainline routes to the west are closed. Travel to and from Manchester has been severely disrupted because Virgin trains are not leaving from Euston. Routes to the main Midlands have also been hit because St Pancras station is closed. And that's not a comprehensive list, so definitely worth checking before you travel. Now, an awful lot of us are on the move this weekend. Here are some of the figures. 18 million cars are expected to be on the roads over the weekend. The good news on that, though, is I think the worst of the traffic jams are over for the time being. Things are running reasonably smoothly. 2.1 million of us are travelling abroad. Now, that's a record. And 1.5 million of those are actually flying out from the various airports around the country. So expect those to be pretty busy as well. I think overall the advice is wherever you're travelling, whatever you're doing, allow plenty of time. Katie.
Lauren, thank you. Football now, and Arsenal have put their troubled week behind them with a 4-2 win over Liverpool at Highbury. Liverpool had the upper hand at half-time after Michael Owen's strike made it 2-1. But Frenchman Thierry Henry, who recovered from injury to play, rescued Arsenal with a hat-trick. And a woman in Manchester has met up with 2 police officers who helped her with a very special delivery. Pregnant Neely Owens found herself going into labour in the front seat of her car, and she knew she wasn't going to reach the hospital. Luckily for her, the police arrived in the nick of time. Shuli Ghosh has the story.
Small, sweet and sleepy. Not the type you'd expect to find in the long arms of the law, but that's exactly where these newborn girls ended up. The twins' mother was being driven to hospital by her partner when the babies decided to put in an early appearance. They were delivered on the front seat of the car with the help of some passing police officers.
They were absolutely brilliant, they really were. I couldn't have done it without them. They were absolutely brilliant. I really don't know what we'd have done without them, because Des was panicking, I was panicking, and you know, to have had to have phoned an ambulance and try and deliver 2 babies as well, I don't think we'd have been able to do that.
The drama happened in Greater Manchester in the early hours of yesterday morning. Police training doesn't normally include childbirth, but the officers were able to make their special delivery with the help of instructions relayed to them over the police radio.
The first baby was already halfway out, so it's a bit of a shock seeing that at first.
Obviously been born for a couple of days now, and they feel a bit heavier than they did on the night, so it's nice to see them.
The babies are both doing well, living proof that you can find a police officer when you really need one. Julie Ghosh, ITV News.
Lovely story. That's it. I'm back at 11 with more news. Next on the ITV News channel, details of all the latest cinema releases, some inspiration, if you need it, for enjoying the Easter weekend. From me, though, and the rest of the team here until 11 o'clock, goodbye.
ITV National Weather, sponsored by Powergen.
Hello there. So there's been a fair amount of cloud creeping in through the day, bringing with it light and patchy rain. That's going to continue across much of England and Wales tonight. So this is the picture first thing tomorrow morning. There will be some breaks in this cloud across the northern parts, allowing the sunshine to come through. However, very damp and cloudy across the England and Wales. Now that rain will gradually edge away through the day, so it is going to become drier. Some brightness in there, but still a lot of cloud around, and later on some rain working into the far northwest. But certainly a better day for England and Wales come Easter Sunday. Still a lot of cloud around. We'll keep the light rain and the patchy cloud up in the far north, but feeling nice in any brightness. Monday, still some cloud, but feeling very pleasant in any sunshine. Bye-bye.
Positive energy from Powergen.